Anyone know of any business we need to conduct at this meeting? Okay, not aware of any, so we'll go on ahead. I will encourage everyone to mute yourselves so we don't interfere with our speaker. And I believe Alice, you're doing the introduction today, correct?
Yeah, it's going to be short because I'm going to let Courtney introduce herself. But we're very excited that she could be here today. It's a really busy time in Kansas. Courtney is with the Planned Parenthood of the Great Plains, and we as Missouri is part of that. And her title, as Pam said, is Planned Parent of the Great Plains Votes, Kansas Constitutional Freedom Update. Courtney is the Vice President of People, Culture, Equity, and Public Affairs. That's quite a title to fit on a business card. I just wanted to say, but Courtney will explain it, this is actually one of those difficult amendments where people have to vote no to keep abortion rights, I believe, and to keep it accessible to us in Missouri. So anyway, Courtney, let's hear about you. And again, we're really excited you could be here.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for inviting me to speak with you all today. Like Alice said, my name is Courtney Vincent Woodbury. I am the Vice President of People, Culture, Equity, and Public Affairs for Planned Parenthood Great Plains and Planned Parenthood Great Plains Votes, which is our C4 arm. And I wanted to share just a little bit about myself before I jump into the presentation. I come to this work from a place of personal interest. I have had a long relationship with Planned Parenthood for most of my life. When I was in high school, I grew up in Denver, Colorado. When I was in high school, I actually used to ditch school to go to Planned Parenthood trainings, and my friend and I, we would get training on how to be human shields for people that wanted to get safe and legal abortions. And so Planned Parenthood has been a part of my advocacy work for a very long time. Professionally, I've been with Planned Parenthood for just over a year. Prior to that, I worked with a variety of nonprofits and a variety of positions, but always working for and with people on the margins and in vulnerable communities. I'm currently I'm currently a third-year doctorate student at Clemson University in policy studies, focusing on redistributive policies that impact in particular people of color in urban settings. And so all that to say, this is what brings me to Planned Parenthood, because when it comes to issues of abortion access, reproductive health, reproductive justice, Planned Parenthood is definitely on the front lines. And we are starting to have a better understanding of the consequences that it has to all people, but in particular, those in communities of color. And so with that, if you all don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Do I have the option to do that?
David?
Try it again. I just made you co-host, so maybe now you can do it.
Yep, I sure can. Thank you.
There you go. You're welcome.
Okay, do you all see my PowerPoint in non-presentation mode?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, we will go to the start of the presentation. Okay, before, like I said, before we dive into the presentation, I just want to give you a 5,000-foot view of our affiliate. As stated, we are a 4-state affiliate. We provide services in Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. We are about a $5 million organization. We have 13 clinics over those 4 states, and we have approximately 154 staff members that are performing this work, majority of which are on the health services side, which provides direct support to our patient base. And so today's conversation is really going to focus on our work with KCF, which is the Kansas Constitutional Freedom Campaign, Planned Parenthood, Great Plains, as well as URGE, as well as the ACLU, and others are part of this coalition as a way to get out the vote, to vote no on the amendment, so we can retain abortion access in Kansas. So with that being stated, so the KCF, as I stated before, is a coalition of partners. It is a bipartisan coalition of reproductive rights advocates and allied organizations committed to protecting the constitutional right of Kansas to maintain abortion services within the state. We are the first constitutional vote that will take place since the fall of Roe. And so that is significant because we could potentially offer a roadmap to other states that will see similar fights in the future on the ways in which that we went about securing our win. And so we are assuming that we are going to we're assuming that we are going to win. We are hopeful that we are going to win. And so that is, yeah, I mean, that is the only thing that we can do at the end of the day. We want to make certain that that we are doing everything possible.
If you stop your video, it will work better.
Stop my video?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Your own picture.
I can do that.
We're seeing your slide presentation. It may be on your computer, Pam.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. But I'm happy to do that. Hold on. Give me just a second.
Go ahead. I wasn't plugged in very well. So.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Can you also see my presentation now?
Yes.
Okay. Is it in presentation form for you?
Well, we're seeing there. That's it.
Okay, very good. And so, but as I was saying, we want to, all the things that we're doing with the campaign, with our media, with our ground game, which includes canvassing, as well as our virtual phone banks, all the things that we're doing, again, we want to help other states that have constitutional amendments ahead of them have an understanding of what we did to be successful in our race. And so the coalition is, again, actively working to ensure that we retain abortion access in Kansas. And so I just wanted to provide a little bit of information about the amendment. The constitutional amendment will be on the primary ballot, as many of you all know, and it will pave the way for a total ban on abortion in Kansas. It will hand our personal health care choices over to politicians in Topeka. And so, again, the way the antis are framing it, they're indicating that no, that's not the case, but it actually is. And so we are doing all that we can to raise awareness and education around the amendment. The language is intentionally confusing to confuse voters as far as how they should vote on the second. And so again, that is why we are doing all that we can, whether it's events, again, whether it's crowd canvassing, whether it's door-to-door knocking, to ensure that we're getting the information and word out about voting no for that amendment. This amendment is an attempt, again, to give politicians speaking the power to go beyond reasonable regulation and ban abortion completely. Abortion is already regulated in the state of Kansas, as it is in every state. And so the fact that, again, a lot of the media that is out regarding this particular amendment, where they're stating that Kansas does not have regulated abortions, is not true. And we are working, again, actively to make certain that we are rebutting everything that, or providing rebuttals to everything that is being said to the contrary. So I want to talk a little bit about how we got here. And so this gives us a pretty good timeline about abortion rights, not only nationally, but also the impact that it's had in Kansas and our region. And so since 1973, since Roe was decided, there has been pushback and intentions on restricting and banning abortion since that time. In the 2000s, again, anti-abortion politicians have pushed a lot of different bans on abortion, including excessive and burdensome regulations. And that's part of the reasons why, moving away from Kansas for a moment, but speaking specifically about Missouri, why we do not perform abortions in Missouri, because of the bans and regulations that are placed not only on the organization, but also the providers of abortion services. Many restrictions were approved, and abortion continues to be heavily regulated in Kansas. One of the things that happened that was extremely pivotal, which also gets us to our conversation today, the Kansas Supreme Court, right, had the forethought that the Kansas Constitution guarantees the right to personal autonomy. Right, and that personal autonomy piece is a thing that secures abortion rights for women here in Kansas. And so the court's ruling prompted lobbyists and special interests to press for a constitutional amendment, removing this right from the state constitution. And so again, because it has been codified in the Constitution, that allows us to maintain providing abortions here in Kansas, not only at our Overland Park location, but also at our Wichita location. We have recently opened our Kansas City, Kansas clinic, and they too will be providing abortion services there as well. In March 2020, just moving forward, that's where the value them both legislation started to gain traction. And in November 2020, the general election changed. And then in January of 2021, again, politicians in Topeka voted to approve the Constitution, an unnecessary constitutional amendment, and put it on the August 2nd primary. And part of the reason that we all know that it was put on the August primaries because of low voter turnout, right? And because of low voter turnout, the expectation was that people would be confused by the language, that a older electorate would be voting, and that the protections that are currently codified in the Supreme Court, in the Constitution, would be eliminated. And so I think that is, so that's just important to understand, just the timeline and where we are, and again, what we're doing to help offset the fact that it is a August primary. So these are things that we want, these are things that we're sharing with people, especially young people, and all folks that are not registered to vote. So we're just reminding people that the last day to register to vote is July 12th. We are having canvasses 3 days a week. We have a special event on July the 9th, this Saturday, in Lawrence, Kansas, specifically to get out the vote with young people and to make certain that they understand the impact that the fall of Roe has, and also the impact of this upcoming election. And one of the other things that we are attempting to stress at this particular event is that many of the many of the folks that we are targeting for our event have always lived with the access of abortion services as part of their reproductive health options. And so we want to help articulate and help them understand life before Roe and the challenges that women face and receiving the care that they wanted and deserved. Again, the rest of this information is just regarding advanced in-person voting and all the things associated with preparing oneself for the August 2nd primary. And for those that, again, we just want to make certain that we're making everyone aware of who can vote. Independents, Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated voters should all be voting on August 2nd. This is not just a Democrat issue. This is not just an independence issue. It's an everyone issue. And so anyone, regardless of how you are registered, if you care about abortion issues, if you care about women's issues, if you care about human rights issues, we are asking that if you are a Kansas resident to vote August 2nd and vote no on the amendment. So there are other ways in which you can also engage in this fight, regardless of where you are, whether if you're on the Missouri side or the Kansas side. You can always engage our social media channels. You can sign up and subscribe to our Instagram, our Twitter, and our Facebook. There are a variety of educational sessions that you can participate in to learn how to table at different events. If you want to learn more about the services that we offer, again, those trainings are available so that you can be a community ambassador in your area. You can attend events, you can have house parties, and you can also, of course, donate, right? So there are a variety of ways that you can engage in this work. You can engage in the fight. Many of the volunteer options are virtual. So if you want a phone bank, you have the option of doing that from the comfort of your home. If you want to share stories about your own experiences with Planned Parenthood, we are seeking those as well. And so, again, there's a lot of different touch points that we have for people that care about maintaining abortion access, not only in Kansas, but in our region. And so with that, I will close out. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, I am here to answer all of them. And I will stop sharing my screen.
Courtney, you can turn your video back on. That way we can see you.
Okay, that works. That works.
It looks like I see that Shamin is our first question. Hi, Shamin.
Hi, I'm just wondering, in terms of Kansans, when they go to vote, do they need to, and I'm asking because my mom is like tweeting out stuff from Kansas, do they need to ask for a Democratic primary ballot? Like, I know in Kansas, I used to when I lived in Kansas, you had to be registered with a particular party. Do they have to ask for their party's ballot, or do they just go and it's just the same ballot for everyone for this event?
You do not have to get a Democrat or Republican ballot. It'll just be on the ballot. Yep.
It's on all of the ballots then, or it's by itself on a ballot?
It's by itself on the ballot. That's how we've been seeing it. I can definitely double check before our presentation or my presentation ends or the questioning ends. Alice, did you want to go?
Yeah, my question was actually about voting. Because we're pretty restricted in Missouri about advanced voting, and it looked like it was more generous in Kansas. And also, you've only got, I guess, a shorter, the 12th, we can only, ours was last week. Do you know how much advanced voting you can do? Look like from your slide, or?
So advanced voting starts August 13th, July 13th, and ends July 26th.
Okay, that's fine. It's probably unimportant. We've got a lot of questions. It looked like Valerie had her hand up next.
Yes, hi, Courtney. I'm a reporter for the Columbia Missourian.
Hi.
Hi, I just wanted to ask if you had any comment about the executive order Biden signed just a couple of hours ago about protecting reproductive rights.
At this time, I do not.
Okay, no problem.
Carl, Mari?
Hi, it's me. I have a question about if you know how, well, two questions really. Do you know how many Missouri women are accessing abortion in Kansas? Because I feel like that's a real important thing that makes this so much more important for Missourians, the fact that we're going to lose access here. And then my other question was just, are there groups supporting the defeat of this amendment that are accepting contributions?
Thank you for your question. So as far as, so many Missourians access services at Planned Parenthood. Just shy of 40% of people that are seeking abortive services do come to Overland Park and our other Kansas clinics. And so Kansas is very important in the fight for reproductive services in our region. It is critically important. And as far as, as far as the our coalition partners, all the coalition partners that are part of KCF you can donate to them individually. And again, most of the funds that we are currently receiving are all going to the campaign to fight the amendment.
Great. It looks like Kilima and Sue.
Can I just ask a quick question? Were you saying 40% of the clients in the Kansas City area at your Kansas clinic are from Missouri? You didn't
Correct.
have, rather than other states, just Missouri.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, my question, a little bit more complicated.
Sure.
As you are, I'm certain you're aware, the majority opinion of the Supreme Court permits states to restrict not merely abortion, but specific language is applicable to in vitro fertilization, and that's been discussed nationally as well as in the Columbia Press. Does the language of the Kansas Amendment restrict more than merely abortion?
Again, thank you for your question. No, it doesn't. Now, does that mean that legislators wouldn't go after the very things that you talked about? We think that they would, right? I think that how things are trending and with justices like Justice Thomas speaking far more candidly than justices have in the past about different human rights that they would like to roll back, I think that is a definite concern. And just, and before we go back to Shaman, I'll say one more point about that. I think you all saw within the last week or so where St. Luke's had stopped providing Plan B to patients because of the lack of clarity of the law. And until Representative Quaid pushed the AG to clarify that point, there was hesitation, right? So there's hesitation from providers and healthcare systems to provide birth control options for folks. And until that point was cleared up, we saw the effects that could happen when people are uncertain about the law. And so it really took that direct action by that representative before St. Luke's changed course and others to allow Plan B to still be distributed to their patients. And so, but to your point, we do think that there are other things on the chopping block if we lose in Kansas. Shaman, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, I had put Alyssa and Rachel's email in there, in the chat, and I just want to make certain that I spelled Rachel's Stoudemire's last name correctly in the chat.
You did.
Okay, thank you.
Courtney, I was just going to ask you to talk a little bit. You had given me some numbers about the polling, how close it was. So the importance of any kind of resources would be even more important. You know, Missouri's a pretty split state, even though we're red. And I guess Kansas might be similar, right? In terms of issues like this.
Is Kansas similar?
I just meant how close the polling is. The little.
Oh, yes, yes. And so, prior to roll polling, the polling that we were receiving from the consultants working with the KCF campaign was that it's about a 51-48 split. Now, polling has not been done since Roe has fallen. However, what we have seen is an uptick in voter registrations in the state of Kansas. And so almost to 1,028% increase of folks that have registered to vote. And so it gives us hope. Right now, we have to take the folks that have registered to vote and get them to the polls. Because even though the registration numbers are encouraging, we still need them to finish the, to bookend that with the actual vote no on August 2nd.
Okay, looks like David Luthold, thank you, Courtney, has a question.
Sure.
Okay, I wanted to ask, statewide in Kansas, are there contests in the Democratic primary and are there contests in the Republican primary? In other words, what is the incentive for people to go to the polls on election day and vote, and how does that differ by the two parties?
That's David, that's an excellent question. I'm not certain, right? I don't want to, I don't know if contested primaries on the Republican or the Democratic side would be enough to direct people to the polls, but I do think that this issue in and of itself will get people to the polls. But for your direct question, I'm not certain. I'm not certain if those contested primaries will be enough to get folks there. But we're hoping that this issue in and of itself will.
Great. I think Pam was next.
Mhm.
Yes. My question is about protests that have taken place since the decision came down. In Missouri, we've had many protests in Columbia, St. Louis, Kansas City, and Jeff City. I don't know about Springfield. What cities have there been protests against this decision?
Within our affiliate or within Kansas?
In Kansas.
In Kansas. So we have had, I won't, do you mind if I move from the word protest to rallies? If that's okay? Okay.
That's
So
a better word.
Okay. We have had rallies in Overland Park, in Lawrence, Wichita. We've also had smaller rallies in Dodge City, and really throughout the state of Kansas. There have been small pop-up rallies in unexpected places, which again is encouraging because people are paying attention. I don't know if you all saw there was a news clip yesterday, I believe, where they were talking about how Atchison, Kansas wouldn't be allowed to vote. Citizens in Atchison, Kansas wouldn't be allowed to vote in this primary. And, the ACLU got involved and others got involved. And regardless of how they were voting, we didn't want those 10,000 plus voters to be disenfranchised. And so they have, changed course on that. And those citizens will be allowed to vote in August, which
were they not going to be allowed to vote?
It was just a procedural thing. They had an earlier vote earlier this year, which didn't allow them to vote or participate in this primary. But again, they retracted. And if I find the link, I'll drop it. I'll drop it in the chat so you all can check it out.
That seems to be very illegal.
That's what we thought.
Wow. Crazy. David, thank you, Courtney. David Robinson.
Yes, I want to notice something, and you can maybe comment or tell us more. I've worked in educational politics, and I always loved the times when Missouri people could get together with, well, in our case, Kansas and sometimes Oklahoma people to talk about how we deal with our state legislatures on education. And I thought we didn't do enough of it. I see here Planned Parenthood with by necessity, a 4-state organization starting to do a political and, educational organization on this incredibly important issue. Can you see a future for these multi-state kind of organizations to help us have a little bigger bang for the buck than we normally do when we're cracking our heads against our own local state legislature? Do we need to organize regionally? Have you all talked about or learned something about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We definitely need to organize regionally. Part of my work is coalition building, and we are working on coalition building not only in Kansas, in our Missouri, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, in our individual spaces, but collectively, yes, because there's work that impacts us all, right? Whether it is education, right? And just speaking specifically about education, in all 4 of our states, Planned Parenthood has been banned from schools and providing comprehensive sexual education. And so, yeah, there are definitely areas and intersections where it's important regionally to have one message, right? Even though it's coming from many voices, one message about the things that we care and value about, or things that we care and value. So we're working on it. We're working on it. Yeah.
Great. I get David, Mallory.
And I dropped the link in the chat for if you all want to check out that story.
Courtney, thank you again for being here with us. I'd like to know, do you know of measures underway or currently being looked at here in Missouri to amend our constitution to either allow or ban abortive procedures here in our state?
any of our, before I chime in, any of our candidates like to that?
There is we do have an initiative petition process that has been started and discussed for 2024. But the initiative petition process, you know, is a thing that is fraught with danger because, of course, in our next legislative session, the IP process will, they'll, you know, there will be legislation introduced to dissolve that process as being an option for Missourians. So it's just one of those things to look out. But the IP process is the only thing that I know of right now.
In this, and what I'll say more to that is, in this last legislative session, there were several pieces of legislation that didn't, that weren't brought to committee, but they're still lingering out there. And one of those, preventing people from, preventing Missourians from traveling to other states where abortion is legal. So travel bans. So there is legislation that is, I would say they're sleeping giants, right? That are there that may present themselves later, depending on how other travel bans in other states within the region take hold. I know that Arkansas is going into special session on August the 8th to speak specifically about travel bans for Arkansans, and they are speaking to members of our legislation about, even though it wasn't presented, the legislation that Missouri has kind of lying in wait around travel bans. So we think that it's going to be another wild special legislative session. And so we're just kind of holding our breath and trying to hold on.
Courtney, didn't Biden talk about travel bans and indicate that that should not be allowed, you know,
Correct.
interstate travel? Or-
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Okay, I thought so, but that doesn't, Biden can say things and
Right.
Arkansas. And also there's that bill in front of the Supreme Court in the fall, which will say state legislatures can rule on all these things and nobody else can. So that's a really terrifying bill for those of us in the South here. It's coming up, but I'll go on to the next speaker. Thank you. Herb Sue, you had a question?
Yes, in this last month of the campaign, where do you plan to, answer the question in two ways. Where do you plan to concentrate the greatest effort and on-hand presence within Kansas regionally? The other way of putting the same question is, what do you regard as the contestable or the competitive geographic locations within Kansas for this event? Will you have a shootout? Will you have a shootout at the OK Corral in Dodge City, for example?
Well, no, basically, you're asking which cities are most likely to vote in your direction, so you will concentrate your efforts in those areas or those counties.
Yeah. Where we're going to concentrate a lot of our efforts is, where we have, our universe of voters. And so our universe of voters are in our Democratic strongholds of Johnson County, Douglas, Sedgwick, Kansas City, Kansas. And so that's where we're going to focus our on the ground canvassing. That is where we're going to focus our virtual phone banks. And so we do think that, especially in Wyandotte, we do have a great chance of recruiting additional voters, just because we have been very intentional about reaching out to the Latinx community, as well as to the Black community in each of those spaces. And so I think that where those voters may have not voted in the past, I think that they have an incentive to vote in this primary.
Great. Okay,
But you mentioned a couple of counties, but they didn't mean anything. Sedgwick.
Oh,
and-
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know, when you get too close to the work, you're just like, hey,
I know.
everybody knows. Sedgwick is Wichita.
Okay, and then there was another one. Was that either Manhattan or
Douglas
or
is Lawrence. Is Lawrence.
Okay, and what about?
Wyandotte is Kansas City, Kansas.
Yeah, I recognize Wyandotte. What about Madison? Does that have, or is that not very big?
No, Madison's not very big, but we're still there.
Okay,
And then also Johnson County, of course,
Yeah,
which is
right.
Oakland Park. Yeah.
okay. Are there some more questions while we still have Courtney's attention and getting us excited to try to protect Missourians
Yes.
as well? Um, Valerie, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I could ask a question.
Sure.
I missed the early part because I had an appointment, but I want to ask you, how many locations are you offering abortions in Kansas? Is it only in the Kansas City area?
3.
3, okay. And the other, are they all on the on the eastern side of the state?
So we have Kansas clinics in Overland Park, in Wichita, and Kansas City, Kansas. Kansas City, Kansas has been open for approximately 2 weeks.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
And to go along with that, and maybe you said it in your presentation, there's been an an increase in abortion numbers since you just opened this new one, and you might have mentioned that.
So what I'll say about the uptick is that the uptake in services are primarily due to folks seeking care from other states. It is not that Kansas is an abortion destination state. It's not that at all. It's that you have women and people that can get pregnant that have lost rights in the states where they live. And so we are seeing an uptick. I mean, we saw an uptick after Texas passed SB 8. We saw an uptick in services when we had the total ban in Oklahoma. And really at the end of the day, these are services that need to be offered in all states, and women should not have to, again, leave their home state to receive the care that they need and deserve. So the uptake, yes, is present, but it's due to the loss of services in states where they live. So yeah.
Great.
Valerie, did you have a question?
Yes, I had a last question. There has been a lot of talk about period tracking apps and whether there's a privacy concern with them. I just wanted to see if you had anything to comment about that or any thoughts.
On period tracking apps?
Yeah, and like the risk of someone breaching like the privacy that one has with because for example, I use one. So, there has been a lot of conversation around that topic. So I just wanted to see what you had to say.
Oh, the only thing that I have to say about that is that when it comes to, are you speaking specifically on people's individual phones or their interaction with the center intake process? I just want to be clear that I answered the question correctly.
Yes, people with individual phones.
Oh, okay. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't really have a comment about about that. But one of the things that we're doing as far as our intake process, because I think that there were a couple reports that your information could be shared with Facebook and all these other spaces. And so we are going through great lengths to protect the personal health information for all of our patients by providing additional cybersecurity, so that any information that's shared with any of our clinics is protected. And so I know it doesn't speak directly to your question. I just wanted to say, just within this space, that we're doing everything that we can to protect the personal information of our patients.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Herb and Sue?
What are the probabilities, estimates on the chance of this passing as of now, a month out? Are there good polls that you can refer to, or can you refer to what we colloquially identify as Las Vegas odds? And I think you know what I mean.
Yes. We're going to go with Las Vegas odds. We're throwing everything at the wall at this point.
I know you are, but what are the numerical estimates of probability of passage of the amendment?
Herb.
Such numbers are available.
I'm sorry. I don't want to jinx us. But if I was a betting woman, I would say that it's I'm hoping for at least 70%, right? That we solidly defeat the amendment, right? So they don't go into special session and try to pull out some legislative craziness, right? So if we handily defeat them, that they will see that it is not politically advantageous, right, to go down this route again. That's the goal. That's the hope.
And the fear?
The fear is that if it's close, right? If we win, but it's close, I think that will be motivation, right? To go down this path in another legislative session sooner than later, or introduce a ban that has that is similar in language that has passed in other states. So even if they're not able to beat the amendment, they would restrict it where it becomes essentially inaccessible, similar to what's happened in Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. That's my fear.
Wow. Okay. Pam and then Shamin. I think we have time for both.
I'm a little surprised that you don't have clinics in southern Kansas for people in Oklahoma. Maybe it's because you don't have cities there.
When you say southern Kansas, what?
Well, close to Oklahoma.
So we have clinics in the northern part of Oklahoma. So we have a clinic in Lawton.
Okay, so I guess I had it wrong. I thought it was outlawed in Oklahoma too. But
it is, but I'm just saying, prior to the fall of Roe and prior to the passage of the total ban in Oklahoma, part of the reason why we located it there, because we wanted to give folks in rural Oklahoma greater access.
Mm-hmm.
And so strategically, it made sense, but in this current political space, Oklahomans will still have to come to Kansas, whereas southern folks that lived in southern Kansas could have easily just hopped over into Oklahoma to gain access and closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Shaman.
And I was just gonna go back and comment, I'm not certain how, like, they're sending out individual, links, but ACLU People Power, you can go, I think you can go to the website, is having, a session on the July 12th on digital privacy and abortion access, just to go back to that question about period apps and things like that. So that is a possibility. If people are interested, they can check out the ACLU's People Power project and sign up for some of those trainings on digital privacy and abortion access.
Min, would you put that in the chat?
Yes.
When that is?
Yeah, and I don't have a direct link.
Oh, just the date. People could look it up if they're, that'd be great. Okay. Looks like we're giving Courtney 7 minutes less. We're not going to exhaust every single minute till 1:15 unless there's a last question. This has really been great, Courtney. Thank you for finding the time.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. Totally appreciate it. And thank you to David and Shaman and all the others that have put additional information about our services in the chat. Please feel free to reach out if you need anything, need some additional information, talking points, or what have you. And please tell all your Kansas friends, family, and loved ones, and even your enemies to vote no on August 2nd.
Right. Thank you for the very important work that you're doing, Courtney. This is really something.
Yeah.
You are really needed.
Well, thank you, as are all of you. So I appreciate the work that you all do too.
Thank you again, Courtney. On behalf of Boone County Muleskinners way down here in the heart of Missouri, we appreciate you reaching over and spending some time with us. So thank you so much again for being here. Everyone else, remind everyone else that next week, come back and get information on Missouri's Boone County's Upward Mobility Grant Program. So we'll have a couple of speakers here for that. And as I said, we can go ahead and close this out now and start our executive committee meeting. If there are no other reason, we've got about 5 minutes left. If anyone had any last minute comments or questions for Courtney, we got. Otherwise, I can go ahead and close the regular meeting. Well, Courtney, thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and transition from this meeting to our executive, and anyone's welcome to stay as they like.